This is the fourth and final episode of this solo series on the real shifts to find and sustain love after 40, and really to believe in love again and date without the exhaustion and drama, to have richer connections and meet more potential partners and actually even enjoy yourself. Before I give you the third move, I want to take a minute to review what I've talked about so far. The first shift I talked about is starting a date by naming a shared context. Saying something like, let's be honest with each other instead of trying to be impressive. It's this one sentence that shifts the whole dynamic before the date really even begins. The second shift is holding an internal question throughout the date. The question is, do I like who I'm being in this conversation? Which really is also a way of saying, am I enjoying myself? It's a question that keeps you connected to yourself when it would be so easy to drift into monitoring the other person instead. The next part is the moments that come up inside a date when something feels a little bit off, when there's a little friction inside you, there's a difference that matters or something that lands a little bit wrong or a signal your body catches before your mind has words for it. You actually have a choice at that moment. Most people smooth it over, ignore it, just keep on moving. And I want to give you the third shift, which is what you can do instead. Welcome to this episode of Practicing Love. Have the best love and sex of your life. When something comes up on a date that creates friction inside you, the two things that people generally do, the first, like I said, is to smooth it over, which means you override the signal, you keep the conversation pleasant, and you tell yourself you're choosing your battles wisely. The second one is to quietly exit. Sometimes this happens where you actually walk out the door. Often it's inside your mind, right? You disengage. You're physically still there, but you've already left this connection. Both of these responses make sense. Both come from the same place, that accumulated wisdom of someone who knows what it costs to be hurt. And both produce a version of the same outcome. You leave the date not knowing what you would have found out if you had been honest. The smoothing over is the one I really want to spend more time with because it's the one that looks most like wisdom, but it is often a kind of protection. And to be clear, I'm not talking about major value differences, big red flags, right? What I'm talking about is differences that could be navigated or better understood. And when they are, something new gets revealed. There's a depth of character or a sense of how emotionally intelligent someone is. There's a peek into someone's personal story and how they deal with relationships, how they communicate. People who've been through difficult relationships have genuinely learned something, right? They know not to react from a triggered place. It's not always easy, but they know that. And they know the difference between a pattern and a single moment. They've done the work of not turning every discomfort into a confrontation. And that's real growth. I'm not suggesting it isn't. But the skill of letting things go is sometimes developed in a long-term relationship under stress or in a family system where you're not supposed to speak up for yourself. Applied in early dating, it produces a different result. It filters out the exact information you need most. The things most people let go of in the early stages of dating are moments like these. A comment that dismissed something that matters to you. A moment when the conversation went somewhere you weren't comfortable with and you went along with it anyway. A sense that the person across from you wasn't quite listening or was only interested in being heard. You let these go because you don't want to make things weird and you're being fair, you don't want to be offensive. You also know you're not perfect and so, well, fine, I'll just let it go. But here's what you don't get to know when you do let it go is whether this person can be present and honest in a moment of mild friction. Whether they can hear something slightly uncomfortable without shutting down or becoming defensive or making it about them. And that capacity, the ability to stay regulated and curious when something real comes up, is one of the most important things to know about someone you might want to build a relationship with. The more emotionally mature you are, the better the case for letting it go sounds inside your own head. Because you think, I'm not going to be reactive. I'm not going to make this weird. I'm going to see how the rest of the date goes. It really sounds like wisdom. It is a kind of wisdom. In this specific context, though, it's more of the protection talking. And it's protecting you from the one piece of information that would really tell you something true. So, what does the third shift or move actually look like? It's not confrontation or turning date into a therapy session. It's not unloading your decades of relational history onto someone you met an hour ago. Again, I like to keep this simple. It's one honest sentence about your own experience. And the distinction that makes it work is this: you name what's happening inside of you, not what you think their behavior means. So remember, go back to the question, do they like me is about them. Do I like who I'm being is about you. And when something comes up that creates friction, it's the same kind of move. Stay in your own experience. Don't make a conclusion about them. Just name what you noticed in yourself. It's not saying, oh, that came across as dismissive, because that's an interpretation of their action. It sounds like an accusation, even when it's not intended as one. It's more like, oh, when you said that, I went a little quiet. I'm not exactly sure why, but I just wanted to name it rather than just move past it. Or it could be something like, when you said that, I wondered if our values wouldn't eventually align. These are your experiences, right? You have direct access to them. There's something you can say with genuine curiosity rather than judgment. And they're not making a conclusion. They're actually opening up a possibility for a new conversation or for a deeper conversation. An amazing phrase I love to give my clients that opens the door to this is, can I say something honest? It's simple, it's not threatening, it signals that something real is coming without making it feel heavy before it arrives. So most people, when they hear that, say yes, because most people are exhausted from dates that never go anywhere real, and they're quietly relieved that someone is about to get real. If you haven't yet taken the quiz to see what keeps you from having the best love and sex of your life, go to shanajamescoaching.com/quiz. You'll get a personalized report of your strengths and challenges in the 5 crucial areas that lead to your most fulfilling and exciting love and sex life. Go to shanajamescoaching.com/quiz to find out. This is what you do with the data from the second move, because the second move reminds you your own internal experience is reliable. When it shows you something uncomfortable, this is what you do. You say it out loud. You speak up in the moment. You use your own words. You share a simple sentence to start to get more real and more honest. When you name something small and honestly, the person across from you has a limited set of possible responses, and every single one of them is information for you. They can receive it with curiosity. They can stay open, ask what you mean, share something honest back. This is someone who has the capacity for the kind of relationship you actually want. And when you do this, you've found out something essential about that person. They could also become defensive, and they could minimize what you said, explain why you shouldn't have felt that way, or explain the shift of the conversation away. It's also information, important information, and you have it now instead of 6 months from now. They could also try to smooth it over without apology or in a way that closes the conversation rather than opens it. Not really a genuine repair, but more of an appeasement. That is worth noticing too, right? It is information. Now, I want to be clear here that the framing is not that you're testing them, it's that you're being honest. But honesty in a mild moment of friction is one of the most precise instruments there is for understanding someone's relational capacity. Because the question that moment answers is whether they can stay connected when something real comes up. And you can't build lasting love with someone who can't do that. I coached a man who was 52. He'd been divorced for a few years, and he was good at holding himself together on dates. He was warm, he was funny, he knew how to make people comfortable. He'd done some real personal growth, and he was proud of his emotional steadiness, as he should have been. His pattern was that he would meet someone who seemed like a real possibility. He'd date them for a couple months and then slowly discover they weren't available in the ways he actually needed. And he described it as always finding out too late. Right? It was frustrating. It was like he was investing time and energy and then finding this out. So we worked on this third shift. and he tried it on 2 different dates in the same month. On the first one, something was said early in the date. It landed kind of oddly with him. He waited a minute and then he said, "Can I say something honest?" And then he said, "When you said that, I noticed I pulled back a little and I'm not totally sure what to make of it yet, but I just wanted to say it rather than move on." His date got a little bit defensive, not aggressively, but just, shifted the conversation, made a joke, moved on. The moment was never acknowledged. So he had real information. And he didn't spiral after, he wasn't second guessing himself, he wasn't devastated. He knew something that he found out in this first hour instead of having to wait until the third month. The second date, a few weeks later, he tried it again in a similar moment. Something landed a little strangely, and he used the same move. "Can I say something honest?" Same sentence about what he noticed. His date paused and said, "Oh, I really appreciate you saying that. Can I say what was going on for me in that moment?" And then shared something she wouldn't have shared otherwise. Something that really recontextualized that moment and opened the conversation into territory neither of them had expected to reach on a first date. So he came home from that date feeling more seen than he had felt in years. Not because everything was perfect, but because something real happened. It was 2 people being honest in a moment where it would have been much easier to just keep things smooth. And he said to me after, "I used to think I was protecting myself by not making things weird or, not pushing someone away. But I was actually keeping myself from knowing who I was really talking to. And that is not actually protection." So these 3 shifts create the foundation of honest dating. The first is naming the shared context at the start. Let's be honest with each other instead of trying to be impressive. The second is holding a question throughout, not the question people usually hold, "Do they like me? Am I doing this right?" The question is, "Do I like who I'm being in this conversation?" And the third, when something real comes up, when there's a moment of discomfort or something isn't quite right, you name it, you say something. "Can I say something honest?" And then you share a sentence about what you noticed inside yourself. These 3 moves together are not a dating strategy. They're really more of a practice, as this podcast is called Practicing Love. They're a practice of staying connected to yourself while staying genuinely open to someone else, and of creating the conditions where something real can actually happen, rather than 2 people performing, running in parallel, hoping connection somehow gets through. The person who practices these 3 shifts is not playing games, not performing openness while remaining protected, not going through the motions of putting themselves out there while keeping the gate locked. They're actually there and honest and present enough for love to land. It's rarer than it sounds, and it's exactly the same foundation of the kind of love you want to build. All 3 of these moves come from a framework I call the discovery-based date, and the full framework lives in the Honest Dating Manual. It's a guidebook I put together that includes the specific discovery questions before, during, and after a date, the language for moments that the moves alone don't fully cover, and the complete picture of what it looks like to date and have a love and sex life from genuinely knowing yourself rather than from hope or self-protection. If this series inspired something for you, the guide is where to go next, and the link to get it is in the show notes. And before I close this series, if these 4 episodes have given you something real, an idea, a shift, or a move that you're going to try, the most useful thing you can do is follow the show on whatever platform you're on. There's more coming, and following is how you make sure you see it. If you're on Apple Podcasts, a review there is the thing that matters most for helping other people find this conversation, because someone out there right now is dating and feeling depleted and invisible, and they don't know there's a different way. A review really can help get the podcast in front of them, and 1 or 2 sentences is all it takes. And if you know someone who's dating after 40 and enduring it rather than enjoying it, share this episode or the whole series. Even one of these 3 moves can change dating forever, and they're worth passing on. Thank you for being here for all of this, these 4 episodes, the 3 moves. And I want to say one thing because I think it's important. The fact that you are here and that you love life and you cared enough to listen and learn and that you're taking this seriously is not a small thing. Many people keep doing what they've always done and wonder why they keep getting the same results. But you're doing something different, and you are practicing love. And the practice, the actual showing up for it, the awkward moments, the honesty that felt risky, that is the thing that changes what becomes possible. Love after 40 is not diminished love. It is potentially the most intimate and exciting love of your life if you are willing to start practicing. Check out the other Practicing Love episodes for more on how to communicate, connect, date, and create amazing relationships.